This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to live better?
We've got a lot of work to do.
Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live Better Now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless. Live Better Now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at UnitedHealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area, limitation, and exclusions apply.
You were scrolling down memory lane when you accidentally tapped your ex's post from years ago. Better delete the whole app. When scrolling's a bust, tacos are a must. Paso, the old El Paso.
Pick up an old El Paso standard stuffed taco kit today.
When modern life gets rough, grab the timeless taste you love. Paso, the old El Paso.
Hello, and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We are so excited to bring you this show.
Our podcast is all about unraveling all of your favorite mysteries from the Assassin's Creed games. Each episode, we'll be talking about a different topic in the Assassin's Creed universe. From Pieces of Eden, solar flares, and the Isu, to the Hidden Ones, the Order of Ancients, and of course, the Animus, we will seek to uncover it all.
So join us, and maybe even take a leap of faith.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. My name is Shelby. You might also know me as She-Cup. I'm super excited to be here today to talk about the world of Assassin's Creed, and I am joined here with me by my co-host.
Yeah, so I'm Austin, also known as Teacup, and we are back to our main topic of the season after a character deep dive, a small break, and a patron chat.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. I mean, I guess we also talked about Alexios versus Cassandra, and so we've just kind of been all over the place. So let's get into some deep lore. I know this is like a huge topic that we're talking about today.
Yes, and like all things in Assassin's Creed, it is a huge topic that we know nothing or very little about.
Of course it is. This is like one of the biggest things in Assassin's Creed.
Yes, just because it's a big moment that happens, it kind of characterizes the rest. You might be wondering, so I'm just going to kind of intro this topic. So you might be wondering that, you know, Bayek and Aya set up the Order of the Hidden Ones. When we meet Basim and Hytham, they are hidden ones. When we meet Altair in the 12th century, Altair is an assassin. So when does this change happen? When does they move from assassin or from hidden one to assassin? When does this change happen? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about the rise of the Levantine Brotherhood, which is the Altair Brotherhood and is the order in which we'll be introduced to with Basm a little bit. Just kind of like the starts of that. Even though Basm takes place before Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the kind of start of this happens there. So a little bit of kind of fun facts about from hidden ones to assassins. So sometime in the 11th century, which is the 1000s, the Order of the Hidden Ones decides to begin to call themselves the Assassin's Brotherhood. Sean Hastings theorized that assassin was originally derived from the Arabic hashashin, which, if you say it fast enough, can very much sound like it comes from assassin. Hashashin, assassin, hashashin. It means hash smokers and was used as an insult to the hidden ones. So basically the hidden ones take this of like, let's just run with this insult and we'll call ourselves this, and then it develops into the assassin, which makes sense because their whole purpose is to kill people who threaten humanity. It was in this time that the assassins fall under the leadership of Hassan-i-Sabah, a Persian assassin who, in light of the Templars emerging as a knightly order, so remember that after Alfred takes over the Order of Ancients, he reforms them into the Order of the Knights Templar. And so he wanted to move the assassins into a more public group as well. Under his leadership, assassinations were much more often carried out in public, in view of other people, in the light of day, encouraging the people to stand up against the oppression alongside the assassins. And so this is kind of a shift where Bayek and Aya's order are more about, okay, let's keep this war hidden. We'll assassinate these people in public or in private, and that will come out. But now they're like, okay, let's assassinate to where it has the most societal causation effect on it. So, like assassinating a public figure while they give this very public address would not be in the style of Bayek and Aya's Hidden One order, but would be in the style of this kind of new regime public assassin brotherhood. So they lived this way for about 100 years, maybe 200 years. In 1162, there's a new leader, and Hassan the Younger is his name. He sends the assassin Rasid ad-Din Sina to Syria to establish a brotherhood influence in the Levant. This assassin would later rename himself as Al-Mualim and would lead to the brotherhood's influence in Syria. Now, this is the interesting fact here. According to the official AC guide for the first game, it was speculated that Hassan sent Al-Mualim away because of an ideological rift between himself and Al-Mualim. We do not know what the source of the rift was, but it is speculated by other assassins in the guide that it was Al-Mualim's desire for power and independence that led him to leave.
I mean, given what we know about Al-Mualim, that makes sense to me. That does not feel off from his character.
Right. So Al-Mualim goes and he sets up his own little brotherhood here, and he starts adding additional tenets to provide new guidelines and ideologies, which these are really interesting to me because there's only two that he really does other than the core three tenets, which are stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent, stick to the shadows, and never compromise the brotherhood. He bans the use of poisons. Why? I don't really know, but he bans the use of poisons. But he also starts promising initiates paradise upon their death for service to the brotherhood, which is very interesting to me. And I don't know if like Ubisoft would really want to kind of lean into this ideology a little bit, because it's very similar to like what often we get perceived as like a prolific idea in Middle Eastern faiths, that, you know, if you die in a suicide bombing, you'll immediately get to heaven because you killed the infidels. Like, it's very similar to that. I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft kind of like, okay, this little lore fact, we're just going to ignore it. It doesn't exist, because it reads in bad taste given the area that this is set in.
See, that's interesting, because to me, I was thinking about Catholicism. I wasn't necessarily thinking about Islam, because, you know, that kind of ideology, it's not a one-for-one comparison. It's not the exact same thing, but that type of ideology of, well, if you do this, then you will definitely get into heaven, and you can, you know, get time off of your loved ones' time in hell or purgatory, is very similar to the idea, which is the indulgences from, you know, the Protestant Reformation. So to me, that's where my mind went, because it's very similar to that ideology as well.
It's this whole thing of like, you're going to earn your way into whatever paradise comes in, which to me is interesting, because in the tenets of the setup, like the Assassin Brotherhood, the hidden ones are all about, yes, this is going to suck. Your life will not be easy, but you will make a better world for humankind. And the sacrifice is necessary so that other people will benefit. The added emphasis on like, okay, now you're going to benefit too, is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of paints this picture of Al-Mualim in this point of like, he's not recruiting to the general Assassin's Brotherhood. He's recruiting people who are going to be loyal to him.
Which, again, explains why Altair has such an issue with him in the first game.
Well, just wait, because we don't get this information in the first game. It's hidden behind database and other info things, but there's going to be another layer to this relationship between Altair and Al-Mualim coming up just right now. So, in 1176, Saladin, who is the leader of the kind of Holy Land area, he is the main, like, the Third Crusade, like, he's the guy. Like, the boogeyman that the Catholic Church paints and that England paints is Saladin. And so he set up a camp outside of the Levantine Assassins headquarters at Masyaf. So Al-Mualim builds Masyaf. It's not established and he doesn't go there. He is the one who goes and builds that as the headquarters. So Saladin sets up this headquarters intent on destroying this foreign power who has taken residence in his domain, his area. Which, like, if you don't know, because you might not know, like, Syria and, like, Jerusalem and Israel, they're, like, Syria is kind of, like, the backyard neighbor to Jerusalem. And so, like, a foreign power setting up on that border would be a big threat to that area. Because it would be very easy for them to come in and basically surround them with the European crusaders coming in from the west. And so that's why he's going there, because he's like, who the hell are these people? So Al-Mualim sends Umar ibn Baladahad, which that name should sound familiar because it is Altair's family name, and he is Altair's father. And so Al-Mualim sends him to silently infiltrate the tent and plant a message. But Umar is discovered and captured, and he eventually is turned back, but Saladin basically interrogates another assassin who gives Umar up. Umar is then forced to kill some of Saladin's men, which this discovery basically gets Saladin to promote peace with the assassins. But he demands one thing. He demands Umar's head, and Al-Mualim agrees. So he turns over Altair's father to be executed by Saladin's men, and that's the end of that. So Al-Mualim at this point then basically takes Altair as his personal protege. He sacrificed his father to be executed, and then takes this impressionable boy and raises him as his protege.
That's really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So just to reiterate this a little bit, you're saying that Al-Mualim intentionally assassinates, murders Altair's father, takes Altair into his own home, basically, and raises him as a son to do his own bidding.
I don't know how much is intentional. Given what we know about Al-Mualim's intentions and goals, I would say it's more likely this might have been intentional, but we don't know what was intentional or not because it is a sticky situation. You have this powerful force on your doorstep who could, if they wanted to, annihilate you, who is suing for peace. And so to get peace, you just have to give up this one assassin. I think the added thing that Al-Mualim takes Altair as his protege could read two ways. It could read as this mentor being like, I'm responsible for your father's death, so I'm going to make sure that you're raised okay, as an act of taking responsibility of that. Or it could have been a thing of, I've put this trauma on you, so now I'm going to make sure it shapes you in the way I want it to shape you.
I mean, yeah, that's fair too. No matter which way you slice it, it's a really messed up situation.
Yes. And, Al-Mualim is not shy of making these sacrifices. So, the events of the first game start and you're in Solomon's temple. You get this thing. You have the thing with the Templars where Altair breaks all three tenets of the Assassin's Creed. He kills an innocent man. He reveals himself before the opportune moment. And he then leads to an attack on Masyaf, thus compromising the Brotherhood. So he breaks all three of these tenets. And Al-Mualim, he basically is the hero of the siege. He drives off the Templars, but Al-Mualim still sees fit to punish him and basically mock executes him in front of the entire Assassin Brotherhood. And then he's demoted and you have to rebuild by assassinating the 9 Templars, which that's going through the game. And then it's revealed that Al-Mualim was actually the leader of the Templars as well. And he was vying for power and vying for this piece of Eden. And then you get that, and there's a lot going on. Well, after this, which if you want to experience the aftermath of the end of the first game, you need to play Assassin's Creed Revelation, because the memories you live kind of show that. So we know that after this, there's a small civil war after Al-Mualim's death that is quickly put to an end by Altair. And basically the root of the civil war is Altair at this moment has basically been viewed as a disgraced heretic. And so some people view him assassinating Al-Mualim, and then he burns Al-Mualim's body. Which, if you don't know, for the Middle Eastern cultures, that's a big deal. Like, that's a no-no. You don't do that with the religions in the Middle East, with Judaism, with Islam, and in some sects of Christianity. Like, you do not burn a body. And so that is a big deal, and there's a big kind of conversation of like, Altair, this isn't how our people, but like Altair's like, he was using weird magic. I need to make sure that he's actually dead. So this small civil war comes out, and eventually it's put to an end by Altair, and he becomes like the leader of this brotherhood. And he starts to reform the brotherhood. He allows the use of poison. He removes the requirement to remove your ring finger. And he forbids the teaching of Al-Mualim's faith, false paradise. So that's what he strikes when he becomes mentor of this brotherhood. He then attempts to spread his ideology to other assassins across the world, but this doesn't really work because the Fourth Crusade gets in the way. And we kind of know the rest and if you want more on what happens to the Levantine Brotherhood, you can go listen to our episodes on the Mongol Empire, because that's basically what happens. There's a conflict with Genghis Khan, and then they come back and basically sack Masyaf. And that's kind of the end of the Levantine Brotherhood.
It's so interesting to me, the massive amount of changes they make.
Yes.
But I don't want to get too far into theorizing, discussing anything like that. So let's go to our mid-break and then come back and we can kind of share our thoughts.
Yeah, let's do that.
16 years from today, Greg Gerstner will finally land the perfect cannonball. Epic splash. Unsuspecting friends. A work of art only possible because Greg is already meeting all these same people at AARP volunteer and community events that keep him active and involved and help make sure his happiness lives as long as he does. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/local.
Ma cos'è? Shoot! Shoot the flying demon!
You weak fool! Get a job!
Christina!
Who's there?
Me!
Oh, it's you. I should have known.
May I come in?
Fine, but only for a minute.
A minute is all I need.
Indeed.
Well, wait, that came out wrong.
Well, welcome to the middle of the show. This is where we talk about all the things that have to do with the Assassin's Creed lore cast and not the lore of Assassin's Creed. So the first thing that I have to tell you is that we are super, super thankful to everyone who is one of our patrons. Becoming a patron is the best way to support us on the show. And it's the number one way to help us keep doing the show. If you love the content that we make, that's the best way to support us. So if you're able to financially support us, you can for as little as $5 a month. And we're super grateful to everyone who does. So thank you so much. The next best way to support us is to leave us a rating or a review. And the one I have to read today is from Abraham. And Abraham from Ghana says, just started listening. Love the pod. 5 stars. Thank you so much for taking the time out to rate us and leave us that review. And then the last thing, not the last thing. I don't have any playthrough updates for you. I am currently starting, I have started the Fate of Atlantis DLC for Odyssey, which will be the last thing I do before I move on to Valhalla. But I know that this will take a long time. So, I've just started it. I don't have many updates. So the last thing I want to talk about with our mid-break today is our survey. We introduced it on last week's episode, and it does close tomorrow on July 28th. This episode is coming out on July 27th. So you have one more day, 24 more hours to go and take our survey. We are interested to know what's your favorite Assassin's Creed games, who's your favorite assassin, who you romanced in the later 2 games, those kinds of questions. We're just really curious about what our community thinks and enjoys about Assassin's Creed. So if you, want to be part of this survey, we'll talk about it on the podcast in a few weeks. You got to go take the survey before we close it on the 28th. And, it'll only take 2 minutes of your time, and we would greatly appreciate it. So definitely go take that survey and tune in back in August for the results. And Austin, I think that's all I've got for the middle of the show, so we can get back into it.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask second grade teacher Mr. Torres.
Put me and just one Clorox wipe on a team? We can take on crayon smudges, sticky fingerprints on every surface, sneezes on the door handle, juice box explosion by the sink, snack crumbs, and don't even get me started on the bathroom passes.
Clorox disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe.
Think about it. Bathroom passes.
Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Another switchback. Wait, this isn't the top? Where's the summit? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves
Almost there. You got this.
that we find only outside.
Wow. This is worth it.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
Malaka. Unless the legend is a lie, you are the man I long to meet. Renowned master and mentor. Ezio Auditore de la. Prego. Forgive me. I have a hard time remembering that Italian gibberish.
I'll see you all at the selection ceremony, ladies. I especially hope you show up.
Let me guess. He's rich.
So for the second half, because that's really all the information we have about this particular period in Assassin's Creed history, which is like one of the few instances we get of like an assassin civil war, basically. Of like assassins really conflicting with other assassins. It's one of the few moments we actually get of that. And so I have some discussion questions that I want to get into. And my first one is about the change of name for the Brotherhood. And I have some thoughts, but if you have really strong ones, you can go first.
I don't know if I would classify it as strong thoughts, but I definitely do think it breaks that tenet. To me, it goes against the whole spirit of what Bayek and Aya established. And to me, frankly, this Levantine Brotherhood, it feels almost as if they're doing this for glory. They're doing this for status and power to become powerful in the world rather than to protect the innocents, which is, why the assassins were founded in the first place.
Right. And we'll kind of talk about kind of breaking the core tenet in the next question. But I do think the change in name isn't necessarily a bad thing because the name Hidden One is so tied to Egyptian mythology and like tied to kind of how that area views that, because the Hidden One is the name of an Egyptian god Amon and Amunet. And so there's that tie in there that like as time progresses and we get far and farther removed from that, there's less knowledge or connection to the importance of that name. And so kind of this changing kind of is a moment for me that the Brotherhood is adapting to its context, basically.
I mean, I get that. I truly don't think the name matters that much. To me, I'm much more focused on the actions of the leadership and like what their intentions are, I think. And I think we see with Al-Mualim, like he's desperate for power.
Right. And that really leads into the next question, which is kind of just the assassins have always operated in the shadows. That's one of their core tenets, to operate in the shadows. Do you think that the first Hassan decision to become a public order breaks this core tenet? Do you think he broke a core tenet of the Brotherhood by doing so?
I absolutely do. Because to me, it's like, and I know we talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but to me, it's like you're basically putting a spotlight on yourself and your organization by being this powerful, by being this public, as having this huge fortress in Masyaf. So to me, it's like, not only are you breaking a core tenet of staying in the shadows, you're also screwing yourself over and making it much harder to continue to operate and not have enemies just know where you live at all times.
Right. And as we see, Masyaf is attacked and sacked several times. What's interesting to me is like, and kind of just to see the other side, a core ideology of the assassins is protecting humanity's freedom and humanity's free will. At some level, the decision to make these assassinations more public and more inclined to have the people rise up against their oppressors themselves is in line with this core tenet of allowing the people to make a choice and fight for their own freedom. But again, then at the same time, you are now putting the lives of innocents in danger. And it goes back to this ideology because it's not really until the Levantine Brotherhood where the ideology of nothing is true and everything is permitted starts getting introduced. Which Ezio has a great quote about that tenet, nothing is true and everything is permitted, is the beginning of wisdom, not its final form.
I really like that quote.
He says that to Sophia when they're walking through Masyaf. He says, in arrogance, young men can take everything permitted to mean that they can do whatever they want and nothing will stop them. But in reality, it's that nothing should stand in the way of you protecting the freedoms of mankind and the free will of humanity.
Right. I do think that that is a very poignant conversation. And I also think that, you know, everything we've talked about today, it is inherently tied to Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed Revelations. And so I love Revelations. It's definitely one of my favorite games. And I just feel like that game gives so much more depth to both Ezio and Altair that we just didn't get in the first two games. And not to say that we didn't have depth with Ezio, but it takes it to a whole nother level. Like, if you stop at Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, like, that's fine. Ezio still has a great story and he has a deep character and he has character growth that's amazing. But when you take it to Revelations, it takes it just so much deeper and to a much more universal level. And so for me, I'm just sitting here thinking about everything that Altair went through and everything he did to sacrifice and make sure that the lessons and the mistakes that they made with the assassins throughout his lifetime did not necessarily get repeated. And it's kind of heartbreaking to me because it feels like that sacrifice is almost in vain because they did get repeated. The assassins did go back into public. They did become more, in the light and not in the shadows. And Abstergo is able to commit the Great Purge because of it. And so to me, it's a really sad situation, but I love Revelations and the scene with Ezio and Altair's corpse skeleton is still to this day one of the sickest scenes in all of Assassin's Creed to me.
And it's just a point of Ezio and Altair are the only assassins that we get to see in their old age, other than Achilles, but he's not a protagonist. And so we see them in their old age kind of speaking this kind of wisdom. And there's just a point of, Ezio knowing that going from, the smart ass, basically playboy of Renaissance Italy to this old man who's looking at to say I didn't really understand anything. And this understanding is complex and cannot just be spouted everywhere. And you really have to understand that the everything is permitted tenet is more of a shackle than it is a loosening of a freedom to do whatever you want. It's more of you have to do this to protect X than it is be flippant with the laws of humanity or whatever, and you can just murder whoever you want, or you can do whatever you want. That's not what the tenet is. And I think that it's difficult for the Levantine Brotherhood, kind of how I talk about kind of like the theology of the Church of England, I think they definitely do have beliefs and theologies that they developed, but their position is so difficult because what do you do when you're founded on the principle of furthering one man's power? And so I think that's a similar thing going on with this brotherhood, is that they're founded because Al-Mualim is sent away because he wants his own power and independence, that he creates his own thing. And it's just really interesting. And from Altair's efforts to spread his reforms to the rest of the assassins kind of dictates that there's a rift between between this brotherhood and the rest of them in probably North Africa and maybe Southern Europe.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know, man. It's just kind of a sad time for the assassins for me, because it's such a change from the intent of the organization as it was originally founded. And I think a lot of these changes are not good ones.
Right. I agree with that. Until Altair basically comes on the scene and changes things a little bit. But he takes a long time to get there.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, that's part of his story. That's part of everything that he goes through. But yeah, absolutely. Well, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up for the day?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at ACLorecast.
If you have any lore questions or topics to unpack, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. Find us on patreon.com/Assassin's Creed Lorecast. The Assassin's Creed Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode's description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, make sure you give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. And always remember, Assassins, stay in the shadows to serve the light.
Are you a fan of Indiana Jones? How about someone who just enjoys an immersive story of historical fiction? If so, then the Indiana Jones Lorecast is the place for you. Join me, Sir Bandit, as we delve into the amazing and rich history of the Indiana Jones franchise, from the films and TV series to the novels, comics, and games. The show is available wherever you get your podcasts, so if you feel that call to adventure, you can come find me in my office. I'll see you there.